I never thought I would find myself telling this story truly. There were countless days where I vowed sometimes, aloud, that I would carry this one secreto. The end of my days there are stories that cling too tightly to the soul tangled with emotions, too intricate and fragile to unravel under the scrutiny of light. But everything changed after the funeral. As the last car pulled away, and the door closed behind the final guest, an almost unbearable silence settled over the house. Not the comforting, soft silence of peace, but a hollow deafening one, the kind that seems to echo off the walls and press against your chest. It was in that echo that I first realized how immense and all-consuming absence Ken Bay, my husband Richard, had always filled every corner of our home. His voice, his routines, his footsteps, even his sighs, they had become the rhythm of my life. Then suddenly, as if a curtain had dropped, it was all gone, and the void he left behind was louder than anything I'd ever heard his son Ayan had. Flown in from the city for the funeral, he was no longer. The boy I remembered years had transformed him, but in my mind, I had always frozen him in time as the silent, distant teenager who never fully acknowledged me. I had never tried to be his mother, nor did he ever seek that kind of connection from me. Our relationship had always been civil, but attached until now. The first night, following the ceremony, something unexpected happened. Ayan didn't retreat to the guest room like I had anticipated. Instead, he sat in the dim living room, a blanket loosely draped over his shoulders, gazing into the dark fireplace. As if he expected it to light itself, he stood in the doorway. For a long moment, uncertain whether I should say something, quietly walk away in the end, I chose to say nothing. Instead, I made tea, an old habit from a time when small comforts still had meaning. When I returned with 2 steaming cups, he looked up at me. His eyes weren't sharp or defensive like I remembered. Instead, they were heavy, weary, brimming with unspoken questions. Without a word, I handed him a cup and sat down beside him on the couch. We didn't speak. There was no need to. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It carried the weight of shared pain. Our arms brushed as we sat side by side. The brief contact startled me, a spark where none should have existed. It should have been meaningless, but it wasn't. The next few days seemed to melt together into a blur. And extended his stay, saying he wanted to help me go through Richard's belongings. I didn't object, truthfully. I welcomed it. His presence offered something unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting. He moved around the house with quiet authority, as though he'd always belonged, yet never fully did. I started noticing things I hadn't before, the way his jaw had firmed with age, so much like his father's, and yet distinct in its own way. The way his voice resonated low and warm, especially in the still mornings when he spoke softly. Asha brewed coffee. Often shirtless, he moved through the kitchen like he owned the space muscles flexing under his skin. With each movement, I tried not to watch. Truly, I did. But my eyes betrayed me. My thoughts lingered longer than they should have on the strong curve of his back, the broad stretch of his shoulders, the steadiness in his hands. One evening, I found him in the garage rummaging through Richard's old tools. Dust clung to his fingers, and under the low garage light, his veins stood out sharply. Head glanced over his shoulder and gave me a smile. Unguarded, sincere. He never let me touch this stuff when I was younger. He said. I stepped in slowly. Unsure what drew me closer. He always said you'd hurt yourself with them, I replied. Ian chuckled quietly. He might have been right. That smile stayed with me well into the night. I couldn't sleep, not because of restlessness, but because of something far more disturbing, a longing I hadn't felt in years. The space between our rooms felt shorter. The silence between us charged. I tried to busy myself. I read, cleaned, scrolled through late-night TV, but none of it eased the itch. In my chest, I missed the warmth of another body beside mine. I missed the weight of a shared breath, the comfort of belonging in someone's arms, and I missed being wanted. I heard movement in the hallway, his room. Maybe he couldn't sleep either. My hand hovered over the door, knob trembling slightly. Then, before I could decide, the door opened from the inside. He looked surprised, but only for a fleeting second. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked, his voice low and laced with concern. I shook my head. He stepped aside. "You can come in if you want." I should have said no. I should have turned and walked away. But I didn't. I stepped inside and the door closed behind me, the space between. Us felt tighter now, the air thick with things unsaid. I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. Our eyes locked, and in that instant a silent understanding passed between us. Not words, not confessions, just raw, charged energy. "I don't know what's happening," I whispered, ashamed of the vulnerability in my voice. He moved closer. Me neither. His hand grazed mine. It wasn't bold, not intentional, but it was enough my skin prickled. We sat on the edge of his bed, the mattress cool beneath us. The air was heavy with the scent of his cologne and clean fabric. He looked at me as though searching for something, permission. Maybe, or forgiveness. I shouldn't be here. I murmured, but I didn't leave this time. When his fingers found mine, they didn't let go. His grip was firm, grounding steady. "You're not wrong for needing someone," he said. There was no script to follow, no roadmap, only two people. Leaning into a moment that neither of us fully understood, his hand slid up my arm, warm and careful. His fingers traced slow, deliberate lines across my back, drawing quiet circles, like he was learning a language written in skin. My breath hitched, my heart thundered when he touched me. It wasn't frantic or desperate. It was measured, almost reverent, as though he was afraid the spell might break if we moved too quickly. Every motion was slow. Every sound was soft. No chaos, just stillness, a quiet exploration of something. Neither of us could name. His forehead pressed gently against mine, and in that suspended breath I felt everything: the yearning, the fear, and the strange, painful hope. Tears welled in my eyes, not from grief, but from the terrifying realization that I could still feel that some part of me wasn't dead. We laid side by side afterward. Not speaking, our hands found each other. Without hesitation, the silence wasn't cold anymore. It wrapped around us like warmth, like acceptance. I wanted to explain what had just happened, to justify it, or maybe to apologize. But there were no words, none that could touch the truth. The guilt didn't come. All at once it arrived in quiet waves, not because of what had happened, but because of what it could be twisted into, what people would say, what Richard would think if he could see us. But still I didn't pull away. "Are you okay?" "Hesked, are you?" I replied. He took a deep breath. "I haven't felt this grounded in a long time." We talked more than we ever had before. He shared how distant he had always felt from his father, how he'd seen me as a calm figure, unattainable and distant. I told him how I never truly felt seen, how even as a wife I'd always hovered at the edges of their world. He ached up and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, soft and careful. "You don't owe me an explanation," he whispered. "I'm here because I want to be." Something broke inside me then, and in that breaking, I felt strangely whole. Morning light filtered in through the curtains, spilling golden lines across the floor. I watched him sleep for a long time before I slipped away to the bathroom. The woman in the mirror looked different. Not younger, not smoother, but undeniably alive. When I returned, he was awake. He sat up, slowly rubbing sleep from his eyes. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. There was understanding. His gaze, we didn't speak about what it meant, not then, but I knew we'd navigated one morning at a time. He stayed, and for the first time since the funeral, the silence in the house didn't feel like a burden. It felt like breath, a slow inhale of something new, of possibility, and I let it in. Whatever this was, however uncertain or complicated, I didn't resist anymore, because perhaps in the wreckage of grief, something unexpected had found its way through the cracks, not to replace what was lost, not to erase it, but to remind me that I was still here, that I could still feel, still want, still live.